Here's 3 of the great changes coming to the Total War Warhammer series with Immortal Empires. These are things I hope to see in future Total Wars, and they're things that you probably have heard about but haven't seen in detail yet, so here we go. First of all, there's a new main menu which I have mixed feelings about, but that's not what I'm here to show you. I'm here to talk about the endgame scenarios and how they work. So before you start a campaign, you'll have all of these options. First of all, you can just simply turn off the endgame scenarios if it's not something you want. You can crank up the difficulty, much like the Chaos Invasion. You can double the amount of armies that'll come after you, or reduce it if you don't want anything too crazy. You can set the warning timer, so you can have no warning at all if you want, or you can go up to 25 turns to give you plenty of time to prepare. And then we have trigger on turn timer, which means you can set the range of when the endgame scenario might happen. You can bring it as early as turn 10 and as late as turn 500. So you can set the range of when you think you might be ready to try and take this on in campaign. If you don't want to just get to snowballing and then just taking everybody out, no problem. This will give you a pretty fresh challenge when you want it. I think the most fun with it though is probably just to set it to the lowest and highest amounts and just let it come when it comes, man. There's also an option to have it simply trigger when you hit the long victory objectives in your campaign. So there's a Tomb King's endgame scenario, a Dwarf scenario, a Greenskin scenario, a Wood Elf scenario, and a Vampire Counts scenario. So that's all the ones there are for now. Feels like something they could add more to in the future, like a Skaven or Beastmen scenario as well. But for now, that's what we've got, and well, they are plenty. And as you can see, you can turn the individual ones on and off, so if you want a certain one to happen, or there's ones you don't like, you can turn them on or off. Now I know what you're thinking next, Cirque. What do these endgame scenarios actually look like? Well, here's the Tomb King's one at 200%. That's a lot of skeletons. Very similar to the Chaos Invasion, of course. Cranking up the number just cranks up the amount of armies, but hell, it's going to be a lot to deal with. In the case of this Tomb King's one, it starts only here around the Black Pyramid, seemingly, but it won't take them long to start spreading out and, well, taking everything in their path. You can see there's a lot of armies going in all directions. They've captured a couple of settlements already. These 2 are gone. This one's being besieged up here. So they've got a bit of territory other than what they had before. Who knows where they plan to stop? Maybe they'll take the entirety of this area. I haven't seen how far this goes entirely, but as you can see, you get the idea of what's going to happen. Here they are now with just a couple of settlements taken, but then a few turns later, they are indeed expanding pretty quick. So this one's going to be a pretty big nightmare for anybody starting in this kind of area. The other ones work slightly differently though. Instead of putting just loads of armies in one area, it'll give all the legendary lords a whole bunch of armies. So here's Grom, as you can see, he's got a whole bunch of armies. Over here, Skarsnik also got a whole bunch of armies. I can't remember whether this was 200% or just 100%, maybe 150 or less. I can't remember what I set it to, but still, there's a lot of armies. Grimgor over here, he's got a whole bunch of armies. Here's the Dwarf one, a few turns on, Clan Angrand spreading out a bit, but you can see they've got a whole lot of Dwarf armies spreading out all over this region, no doubt going to take the most of it. So you get the idea with this, but the thing about it is that you won't really realize this is happening. You'll get the warning to tell you that the endgame scenario has happened, but because here I have the Fog of War turned off, I can see everything. Bear in mind that you won't have the Fog of War turned off, and you won't know when all these armies are coming. You'll know roughly where they start if you know where the legendary lords are, but you won't know how they'll fan out and if they might come for you. And it also depends if you start anywhere near one of the factions that goes into endgame, or whether some of the factions have been killed off. If Grombrindle here is killed off by turn 50, he's not going to be around to do the endgame scenario at turn 100, so it may not be as bad as it appears here, but it could well be. So that's endgame scenarios, something really nice to add on, just to bring a little extra challenge once you reach those heights of becoming really powerful and able to just stomp everybody in sight when you've got a huge empire. Well, now there's something that can potentially stop you, but you do have control over it, how hard you want it to be, whether you want it to happen at all. Not everyone enjoys this kind of stuff, so it's good you can turn it off. The customization of it, though, is really the great thing about it, and something I hope carries over into future Total Wars endgame scenarios. On to the next point, and we're going to roll back to Warhammer 2 for a second, just for a comparison. It's all about victory conditions. Here's Ungrim Iron Fist in Warhammer 2 Mortal Empires. And here is his victory conditions for the, air quotes, short campaign victory. Ungrim must make sure the Great Book of Grudges doesn't get too full of grudges, so you got to keep your grudges down. build the Great Slayer Shrine of Karak-Kadrin, eliminate the two main Norska factions, which pretty much means taking the entirety of Norska, also taking out Clan Mulder, who may expand as well, taking control of 5 provinces, which pretty much are all around him, so that means just take all of the mountains around you, recruit a whole bunch of units, and make sure Archaon is dead. That's your short campaign victory objectives. Pretty ridiculous, right? That's supposed to be a short campaign. It's no wonder nobody ever finished their goddamn campaigns. But rejoice, here's Ungrim in Immortal Empires in Warhammer 3, and here is his victory objectives for the short campaign victory. Ensure the Great Slayer Shrine of Karak-Kadrin is built, reach level 25 with Ungrim, and occupy or raise or sack 30 settlements. That's it. How much better does that sound? A lot of that gives you complete freedom to do whatever you want, because all of these victory objectives will happen naturally. You'll build the Slayer Shrine by just upgrading your provinces as you go. You'll level up Ungrim just along the way of playing the game, and you'll take and occupy and sack settlements just naturally playing the game. So much better in terms of freedom, and without giving the long slog of having to go and take out the entirety of Norska and everything else that we had to do before. Not all campaigns have quite as much freedom as Ungrim's does, though. They do have more focused objectives. Here's Malekith, who in Warhammer 2 had a ton of stuff to do, just like Ungrim, but here, life is much easier. His short campaign victory, take out Attain, those dirty Ulthuan High Elves, and take their main settlement of Lothern, so it's still around one faction, and then simply capture 30 settlements. That's it. So not a great deal to do, but it is more of a focused objective of going after somebody and having to go to a specific part of the map to win your campaign, rather than having the freedom, like Ungrim, to just do whatever you want, really. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's just something to note that campaigns are not all as free as Ungrim's might appear. If the short campaign victories are too short, though, the long campaign victories aren't too bad either. It's pretty much the same, you just have to go and take the entirety of Ulthuan pretty much, rather than just taking out Attain. Some of them do feel like they might be a bit longer, like Grimgor's here. He's got to take 6 of these settlements by direct ownership or with vassals and allies, but none of them are greatly close to him. Some of them are kind of close, but still, it's going to take a while to expand out in all these directions and take 6 of these settlements. That's all he's got to do, though, is just take these 6 settlements, raise a bunch of places along the way, and that's it. He wins. Just a couple more examples, one of them Norska here, a faction that people famously didn't want to finish the campaign of in Warhammer 2. All you've got to do in Warhammer 3 is get level 2 allegiance with any god, so that's just level 2, not even level 3, so that's pretty easy, and then just raise a whole bunch of places. And those two things go hand in hand, as you need to raise settlements to get towards the level 2 with a god anyway. And then you have the long campaign victory objectives, which are still reasonably challenging, but not too much, not overwhelming. Ugh, I can't be asked to do all of that. This looks like a reasonable amount to expect from somebody if they find that the short campaign victory is just a little too short and they want to play some more. And then there's the domination campaign victory. If that's more your thing and you just want to sack and raise everybody and take everything in sight, you can still do that too. Also, there's another potential kind of victory objective. If you have an endgame scenario go off, you will get ultimate campaign victory, where basically you just have to defeat that endgame scenario. In this case, it means killing off all of the main Greenskins factions. If you crank the difficulty up to 200%, this may be a little out of reach though. But there we go, much better campaign victory objectives finally in Total War Warhammer. And the last thing is to do with maps, and you might recognize this map. This is a Warhammer 2 map, Bjornling's Gathering. I'm sure many of you will know this map, especially if you're a multiplayer person. It's a pretty kind of flat, snowy map that was pretty good. Well, now it looks like this. Still very, very snowy, but now really, really hilly. So quite a different map, and honestly, pretty much just a new map altogether. It doesn't really resemble the old one at all. It's got a whole bunch of trees around now as well. So basically, some of the older maps that maybe you used to like might have been changed now. It's not all Warhammer 2 maps that have been reworked or anything, although it does seem that they've all been gone over and maybe made visually prettier in many ways, but some have had complete changes like Bjornling's Gathering here. But wait, there's more. This is Bjornling's Gathering, but this is also Bjornling's Gathering. There seems to be some kind of weather system only on certain maps. It doesn't happen on every map, but maps can seemingly have kind of different weather conditions. Now, I'm not sure if this is something I just missed in base game Warhammer 3. I don't know, maybe it was there at release and I just somehow didn't see it, but I've definitely noticed it in this Immortal Empires build, so that's pretty cool. Here's another old Warhammer 2 map that used to be in the daytime Altdorf outskirts, but now it's at nighttime. And I swear to Sigmar, I've loaded this up in Warhammer 3 as well, and it's been in the daytime. So it's like there's a night version and a day version. But for the life of me, I've reloaded the map like 6 or 7 times and I could not get it to show the day version, so maybe there isn't the day version and I just imagined it from Warhammer 2, I don't know, but either way, if we don't have the day version in Warhammer 3 yet, maybe we will in the future, and that would be nice to have night and day versions of maps. But alas, not all changes to maps are good in my opinion. Here's old Mortis Waste from Warhammer 2, I used to use this for the Who's the Best videos. Nice flat, bright and airy looking map. Well, here it is now. Kinda looking a bit sorry for itself in my opinion. It seems like some of the pyramids around the area have been removed and been replaced by little kind of rocky faces. So it feels like a bit of a downgrade in all honesty. I definitely preferred it how it was before. Let me know what you think. Do you prefer the old one or the new one of Mortis Wastes? Here's an old map upgrade done right though. This is good old Glacial Lake, which now has a proper lake looking ground to it, rather than just kind of looking snowy like it does in Warhammer 2. So this looks really nice. This is a good upgrade for the old Glacial Lake map. Still pretty much the same map. It hasn't been changed design-wise, just the visuals have been overhauled, and this looks much better. Although we still have to ask the question of why the hell are we fighting battles on icy lakes? Everyone's going to be falling over. So yeah, expect to see some changes to a lot of the older maps, but also expect a lot of them not to be there. For example, these Sea of Chaos maps, East, North, and South, aren't in my version at least of Immortal Empires. Maybe they will be added by the time of release, maybe they just weren't done and ready for this build, so they will be later on, or maybe further on after release they'll come in. There's still plenty of maps in the meantime though, so it's not as if it's a big deal, but hopefully we will see the rest of the maps come in at a later date. So there we go, 3 nice changes to the Total War Warhammer franchise that I hope carry on into all future Total Wars. Endgame scenarios, better and actually short campaign victory objectives, and dynamic weather that can give maps a different feel and be day or night, although that's not something that's necessarily new to Total War as a whole, but new to the Warhammer series at least. I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching, let me know what you think about the changes, I will see you in the future.